All right. Danny, good to see you. Another Cowboys season. Sad that we don't get a chance to work together this year, but everything has changed. How are you holding up in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic?
Keith, it's like a dream to me. I go to these games. We're up in our booth. We go to LA, this big, beautiful new stadium. Nobody in the stands, and yet there's a football game going on that counts. And I know how hard it is for me as a broadcaster. Um, I can't imagine what it's like for the players. It's got to be like a practice to them, and yet they're real games, and they're making history. And so it's really really strange. A year ago, if you'd have told me we'd be doing this, I'd have said you're crazy. Just I guess it just goes to show you you can't predict anything. Anything can happen. My mantra for the year is it is what it is. I mean, just take it one step at a one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, and don't be surprised by anything.
Danny, one thing that I had a chance to be surprised by was working with you last year. I knew who you were as a player. I didn't know who you were as a person. I had interviewed you on selected occasions, and I had a ball, man. I didn't know
Yeah.
you were so lighthearted. Like a lot of people think you come across as a serious guy. I mean, do you get that a lot?
I really don't. You're the first person that's ever told me that. I'm glad you did, because you always wonder what people's perception of you, what it is, and how they think of you. And that's probably my image as one of a serious guy. But anybody that knows me will tell you just the opposite. I'm a practical joker. I got to have a dry sense of humor.
Yep.
But I don't take a whole lot of things real seriously. So yeah, I think you got to know me, and I got to know you a little bit, and that's a good thing. Hopefully, we'll get to do it again.
One thing, obviously, over the years is Cowboys fans got to know you as a player and now as a broadcaster. What do you think is the biggest thing that stood out about your career, Danny?
Wow. Well, I hope it was just winning. That's all I played for. I see guys today, and it was true back when I played. A lot of guys live for the notoriety, the publicity, being famous, having money. I played for one thing, and that was to win. I loved winning. I thrived on it. I was addicted to it, and I don't think people realize how hard it is to lose. For someone like me, anyway, I hated it. So I think when you look at my record, the thing that I'm the most proud of is, in the 6 seasons that I started and 5 that I started and finished, we were in the playoffs all 5 years. A 5-5 record, played in 10 playoff games, 3 NFC championship games. Unfortunately, lost them all, and that was hard. That was really hard. We're one step, in one case, one finger away. Tackle on Drew against the 49ers, one tackle, one finger away from going to the Super Bowl. So to get that close that many times is tough, but still, I think when you look at the short period of time that I played, because I was in my 7th season before I became a starter. I had 2 in the World Football League, 4 backing up Roger, which was an absolute joke, by the way. I mean, Roger was not that good. If Roger's watching this right now, he knows me well enough to know that I'm messing. he used to always say things to me like, Danny, I can't afford to get hurt because you'll take my job. I'll never get back in. He used to say stuff like that to me. And how silly is that? But anyway, so, to have played in 10 playoff games in just 5 seasons, I think is pretty good. That's what I'm the most proud of. I'm not proud that we lost those playoff games, those championship games. But based on what's happened in the last 20 years, I think that's pretty good.
One of the former Cowboys I chit-chat, a lot with, Butch Johnson, ironically. I met him on
really?
Yeah, and
Where is Butch?
I talked to Butch. Butch is in the Dallas area. I'm not exactly sure, where he lives in DFW, but we talk on the phone every now and again, and he always compliments how great an athlete you were. He says people don't realize how great an athlete Danny White was. He was one of the best athletes on the entire team. When did you know you were a great athlete?
I never did, Keith. People made such a big deal over the fact that I punted and was the starting quarterback. To me, that was, in fact, I punted, played quarterback, and was a holder for Raphael, for the kicker. And I wanted to get paid for that. I remember that really well. I would ask Gil Brandt every year after the season, would you put a clause in my contract so that if I punt, I get an extra 20 grand or something, And Gil kept saying, oh, you're not going to punt next year. We're going to get somebody else because you're too valuable as a quarterback. And then I would end up punting. It would come down to the last cut, and Coach Landry would have to decide, do I cut this really good player and let Danny punt and have a separate punter, or do I let Danny punt and keep this player? And every year, and so I kept, finally one year, Gil said, why don't you go and talk to Tom about it? And so I went into Coach Landry's office. I sat down and I just spilled my guts, man. I just laid it out on his desk. And I said, Coach, can I get a little clause that says if I punt, I get an extra 20 grand? And he just, classic Tom Landry, he just looks at me and he says, well, Dan, back when I played, we would do anything we could to help the team win. End of discussion. Whether we were paid for it or not. You didn't have to pay me to be a kicker or a punter or do something else. We just did whatever we could to help the team win. I knew at that point I had lost that argument. Never came up again. But so I got off on a tangent there. Punting was something I loved to do. And I especially loved running with it. I think nobody has been able to find the stat, but I think I did it 19 times and made a first down every time. Now, that's a turnover. That's just like getting a fumble or an interception when you run for a first down.
We've beat the Cowboys already this season.
Yeah. We saw 2 fake punts and they both failed. Only one of them, the only one that was ever planned, I called it on my own my rookie year against the Steelers. I called a fake punt in the 4th quarter in the huddle. And of course it blew up. Everybody in the stadium knew we were going to fake it. And it was a pass to Jay Saldi, and Jay was covered by about 6 guys. And, I ran over the sideline, sat down on the bench. I put a coat over my head, and I just, I'm looking down at the ground, and I see these 2 dress shoes walk up. And there's only one guy in the stadium in Pittsburgh wearing dress shoes, right? Coach Landry. And I look up at him very sheepishly, and he says, Dan, you just can't do it. You just can't do it. And from then on, I never called a fake. I just did it. I was good at catching the ball and watching the rush because I did it playing quarterback. And I would just watch the rush. If they came too shallow or didn't rush on one side or they had a return on, I'd just start to run. And I knew I could always stop and kick it if I had to. And most of the time, they just turned and ran, never saw me, and I just took off and got a first down. So that was something I took a lot of pride in, that there's no stat for that. And as a quarterback, if I had a punter that would get me another first down and get me a second chance at that drive, that's huge. That's huge. So that was something. I don't know if that qualifies as being an athlete or not, but Butch, one of my favorite receivers, favorite guys. I've lost contact with him. And I'm sad about that. I wish I knew how to get a hold of him. But another guy that's very, very underestimated. The catch he made in the Super Bowl, unbelievable.
Danny, what is the mantle of being a starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys? How would you explain that to, someone who's never going to hold that title? What does that mean? What does that represent? Whether it was you or Roger or Troy or Tony or Dak, what does it mean to be starting quarterback for the Cowboys?
Well, I guess it means a whole lot of people are counting on you to do your job and to do it well. More so than probably any other team in the league. Now, maybe it's not as true today as it was then, but that was not something I ever thought about. And I don't think any other Cowboy quarterback really thinks about it. What you think about is going out and taking your keys and being smart and knowing when to take a chance and when not to take a chance, when to be aggressive, when to be conservative. All that depends on you as a quarterback. And I look back at games and think, still today, I should have done this or I should have done that. I wish I'd, and so when you're the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, you have to be willing to accept the fact that you're going to have to live with the consequences for the rest of your life. Because Dallas Cowboy fans don't forget, and you're in the history books, and they're going to remember you a certain way. And there's probably, once it's over, it's over. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't go back and redo it. That's a great thing about football. It's live television. Once it happens, it's over. You can't hold it, guys. Let's reset that and let's do that again. That didn't go the way I thought it should. One of the things I love about football, and today during this crazy time in our country, what a great relief it is to be able to go watch a football game where it is what it is, and whatever happens, and it's not a bunch of actors out there filming a movie or a TV show or something. It's live television, and I think it's a great relief and release for people who need that today.
The one thing you mentioned is that Cowboys fans have a forever memory. Do you think you got the credit you deserve?
I don't know the answer to that, Keith, and it's not for me to decide. Doesn't matter what I think. Everybody that I talk to says that to me. I hear people say that I was underappreciated or recognized, but it is what it is, and I'm proud of what I did, what I accomplished. Skinny baseball player from Mesa, Arizona, playing in a Super Bowl or two, actually two. So I didn't play the game to be appreciated. I played it to win games, to win championships. That was my motivation. So I don't lay awake at night worrying about the fact that people don't appreciate me. I just don't. There are too many things. I was never one of those guys who put football above everything else. I never did. My faith, my family were more important to me than football. Now, football was up there, probably third on my list. So thankfully, and it's a result of being raised in a family that put the family first, I'm glad I did. I'm glad that was the way I was raised, because otherwise I'd probably be a basket case. I'd be in an institution somewhere today. because some crazy things happened in the 80s. And they weren't all good for the Cowboys. But I have the peace of mind of knowing that I left 100% of myself on the field. There was never a time when I took it easy, got lazy in practice, in the weight room, in games. So I have that peace of mind and that comfort, and I don't worry about it.
One thing that a lot of people have experienced, Danny, not on your level, but in life, is always being compared to someone else. And I would imagine for you, especially with you being the successor to Roger, you were always compared to Roger Staubach. Now, for a lot of people, they like that. For a lot of people, they hate it. How did it make you feel?
Good, because knowing Roger like I do and having the respect for him that I do, because football was not the most important thing in Roger's life either. And I learned that. I didn't learn it from him, but I learned it about him, and came to appreciate that a guy at that level still put God and his family first and foremost in his life. And even today, Roger's not a self-promoter. He was a football player, and a very, very good one. So in my humble opinion, he was the best leader that's ever played the position. Maybe not the best passer, the best runner, the best athlete, but the best leader to ever have played that position. So to be compared to him, to be compared to the best, can't ask for anything more than that. And to even be spoken of in the same sentence with Roger Staubach is a compliment.
So you didn't take it as a burden that people would say, well, wait a minute, Roger did this, now Danny does this. Roger did it this way, now Danny does it this way. You didn't take that as a burden at all?
No. And in fact, statistically, if you look at the numbers and you break it down to per season or per game, or I outdid him in a lot of ways, in a lot of areas. But when it came to winning championships, big games, which is what I prided myself in, he was the best. And he did what he had to do. And in a lot of cases, the Hail Mary, perfect example. A poorly thrown pass, when you break it down, was underthrown. Drew, Roger made plays. I would stand on the sidelines and I would think, he's throwing that ball into triple coverage. What is he doing? But he got it done, and he made it work somehow. So his will, the best example of that was the day that he took out Clint Longley. Clint said the wrong thing at the wrong time in practice and got under Roger's skin. And when Roger made his mind up about something, nothing was going to stop him. And so to answer your question, I don't, it doesn't bother me at all to be compared to Roger Staubach. If I can be half the man that he was and is to this day, I would consider myself very successful.
Danny, what's the difference from where you were as a player and where you are as a broadcaster? What's the difference in your vision of the game?
Unfortunately, my vision hasn't changed much. I am very old school, and it frustrates me, and I have a hard time not saying anything about it. The way the game is played today, the way the players are treated, the changes in the CBA, and the game has just changed. I've got a picture I'm looking at right here on my wall of my dad. It's my favorite picture of him. He was an All-American at Arizona State. played for the Bears for George Hallis for a couple of years, blew out his knee. I've got this picture. He's jumping up. He's got the ball kind of in between his fingers over his head, and there's two defenders, and one of them has three fingers in Dad's eye because Dad would not wear a face mask because he said it made him look like a sissy. His uniform is splattered with blood. He ends up catching this ball for a touchdown. And I look at that and I think, boy, have things changed. And, he played for $10,000 a year. And he just loved the game. So I think I probably get a lot of that from him. And I'm thankful for that. But, as a broadcaster, I just have to try to keep my emotions. You know what I'm talking about, but not let my emotions get in the way of being a fair, accurate broadcaster.
A lot of players from when I grew up, Danny, they make no bones about it, about how athletes today are pampered, whether they're pampered and treatment or pampered and paper, money. They're pampered, and some just pass it off as, oh, well, it's a sign of the times, a change in the times. Others are like, this is ridiculous. I mean, they're adamant about letting it be known that it's ridiculous. What's your stance?
I'm jealous. I that's all it is, because I look at Dak having to settle for $31.4 million this year. He will make more money in one game than I made in my entire career. I'm jealous, but good for him, man. I mean, it's been a long time coming. He does the same thing I did. There's really no difference. He doesn't put in the hours that I did. He's probably has to put up with the media and is more well known, and his lifestyle is very different. But as far as playing the game goes, he probably puts in half as much time as I did in terms of practice and watching film and getting ready and all that. But good for him. I'm happy for him and all those guys that have earned it and have gotten to where they are. I think some of them probably have a ways to go to prove themselves still, and they're getting paid they all are. Every player in the National Football League is getting paid more than they are worth. I got paid more than I was worth. And so I'm jealous, but that's not anything personal against any one particular guy. It's just I wish my mom had waited 20 years to have me. That's all.
That's the right sense of humor.
Her fault. It's her fault.
That's that right sense of humor you were talking about.
Yeah.